Speaking with Derek Jones, who last year delivered the very controversial What Women Want presentation at the AMSRS 2010 Eyes Wide Open conference. You got a lot of press on that study. Just for those that didn't actually get to see it or hear or read it, can you tell us a little bit about what you set out to do with that presentation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, the whole thing was based on the premise of a little bit of an epiphany, a technique that we'd used in market research for years and years, which is a derived importance technique, which is often a little bit complex and hard to understand. And one day I was driving along and I had this kind of moment of, aha, wow, wouldn't this be interesting to apply to something that's a little bit more, dear to us all? And so I thought, well, I'm going to try this out on what attracts us to each other, and that was the kind of the birth of the study.
And from that, what did you actually find out?
Well, look, I guess from that kind of premise, I really didn't start out with any kind of hypothesis. It was more around let's just see what's out there. So of course, what ended up in the press and got a lot of attention was that actually women are far more attracted by the sexual attraction, the masculinity, the basic physical attractors, which the press jumped all over and interestingly probably ignored some bits of the study, but as they do, kind of suggested that perhaps women are more vacuous than we think.
So there were surprises in there for you?
Oh, there was definitely surprises. I think around, there were some bits of it that weren't so much of a surprise. What I really set out to do was to find out what women really want, but wouldn't necessarily tell you. But what I found through the technique, as the technique evolved through the study, was that there was other bits of the story that really I wasn't looking at the very beginning. So areas that women would compromise on, things that women would tolerate. So things like, if your bloke has a few addictions, likes to gamble, that'll be tolerated if he's good looking.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. But at the core of it, we found there were areas of alignment between what women said and what they were actually attracted to, and that was the loving and caring kind of areas. And
have you been able to put any of these findings into practice for yourself?
Well, look, I mean, my wife, she says to me, you know absolutely nothing about women. You never did, and you still don't. And I say, love, I say, pet, I said, I'm an academic, not a practitioner.
So obviously this has inspired then the continuing saga of part 2 with your full presentation, which is entitled
What Men Really Want from Women, but won't necessarily tell you.
And again, so the same sort of things that occurred. Did you set out with a certain mindset about how this was going to end up? And has it deviated or not? Or are you not going to tell us?
Well, look, those who were present at the conference presentations would know that I kind of ended that presentation by saying, tongue in cheek, let's do the brotherhood study, although we already know that every box is going to say sex, 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 sex. So I guess after when I started the project, I said, well, let's see if we can actually exonerate men on this basis. Perhaps they do have some more of those kind of, those softer, loving and caring kind of attributes. And I started to think, well, perhaps they're going to be very similar to women with some nuances, and the sexing won't be so prevalent.
So in terms of methodologies, you completely mirrored what you did with the females?
Once I had the roadmap, it seemed to make a lot of sense to basically take the same path. I did make one change, and that was in the women's study. I basically asked women at the beginning in our qualitative archaeological dig what they were looking for and not looking for in a partner. They tended to polarise the responses, and my chart tended to have quite a bit of a cliff in terms of these were clear attractors, these were clear turn-offs. So this year I asked the guys 2 more questions. One which was, what would you be willing to compromise on, and what would you rather not have? And basically my curve is now, firstly I've got more attributes, I've got 80 attributes in the men's study compared to 60 in the women's, but I think that's probably not because guys have a bigger list, I think that's probably because of the methodology I've used. And that's tended to smooth it out, I think, a lot more and revealed some extra attributes.
And did you find any more difficulties in executing the men's research over women's research?
Probably mainly as the fact I'm a bloke, a little bit more confronting, I guess. But again, look, for me, having that roadmap the first time has really helped with the men's study. I've struggled a little bit more in terms of trying to chunk up and understand what it all means. But I think, as you'll see at the presentation, I hope I've got that right, because If I haven't, I'm a dead man.
So last time you used a number of male celebrities such as Brad Pitt and Hugh Jackman and Tony Abbott on the other side of the scale, I suspect. This time you've taken a whole host of female celebrities.
Again, we use the same technique. It's a derived importance technique, which is basically linking your propensity or your liking of a person or their attractiveness or unattractiveness to the attributes that person holds. So we're basically doing a brand association exercise, but using celebrities. The celebrities come from their qual derived. So basically we ask blokes, as we did with the women's study, what are you looking for in a partner? Who fits that bill in the public eye? What aren't you looking for? Who doesn't fit that bill? And that's how we got our 24 celebrities.
And who do they consist of from a kind of? Like,
oh look, it's a broad mix. It includes some politicians, including our Prime Minister and Pauline Hanson and the Queensland Premier. It includes a lot of actors. Unlike the men's study, though, we don't get a lot of sporting women in the study. So I think that's almost a finding in itself. The fact is that when we did the men's study, all the good guys were actors and all the bad guys were sports guys. So either in the women's study we haven't got any high profile women in sports, or they're just not dickheads.
What do you think the delegates are going to be able to take away from this presentation?
Oh, good question. That's an excellent question. I hope that they walk away with some insight. I hope that they have a good time. I hope they find it a little bit confronting. And I also hope that one of the great things that came out of last year's study is it's a really nice example of how to use the derived technique. So I think there's also a methodological message there. And we certainly find that as a very useful way of describing derived importance to clients.
So actually, that's an interesting thing. So the actual technique in itself, I think, it wasn't just a study itself, but the technique itself was very much discussed, and people seem to really embrace it. So have you been able to use that and apply that to the projects that you worked on?
Most definitely. It's as I've said in terms of particularly with clients, the whole idea, people just get it when you start talking about an example that's not necessarily rooted in marketing. You start talking about derived importance. It's a little bit of a mystery. But basically, if you tell people, well, look, here's a whole bunch of guys that you said were good looking. We put them all in a bucket, and these are your attractive scores that you gave them at the front of the study. The average is 9. That's the derived score for attractiveness. People just seem to get that, and that's really helped us a lot.
And you're going to see this as a very entertaining presentation too, I suspect.
I hope so. I think it's become a little bit of froth and bubble. Clearly, because I'm positioned at the end of the conference, I suspect that maybe that's what it's become. A little bit of pop psychology. I don't mind that at all. It is a bit of fun, and it is designed to take on a bit of a laugh and a bit of a journey. Well,
good luck with the presentation, and you'll be presenting on the second day.
The second day, the 9th, the graveyard shift, I believe, just before Will Anderson. I think it's about 4:30.
Good luck. We'll see you then.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers, mate. Cheers.